Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. Cinderella was very sweet and loved animals, especially her two little mice friends, Gus and Jack. She was always cheerful, even though her life was not easy. You see, Cinderella's mother and father had passed away, and she now lived with her mean stepmother and two stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. Her stepmother and stepsisters were not kind to her at all. Every day, they made Cinderella do all the housework. She swept the floors, washed the dishes, and scrubbed the windows. Cinderella's clothes were old and tattered, but she never complained. She dreamed of a happier life and believed that one day, her dreams would come true. One day, a big announcement was made throughout the kingdom. The king was throwing a grand ball at the palace, and everyone was invited. The prince was looking for someone special to marry, and the ball was his chance to find his true love. Cinderella's heart filled with hope and excitement. "I wish I could go to the ball," she said, smiling. But her stepsisters just laughed at her. "You? Go to the ball? Look at you. You're dirty and dressed in rags," they sneered. Cinderella's heart sank, but she still held onto a little hope. The day of the ball came, and Cinderella helped her stepsisters get dressed in their fancy gowns and helped her stepmother fix her hair. Once they were ready, they hurried off to the palace, leaving Cinderella alone. Cinderella felt a tear roll down her cheek as she watched them leave. I wish I could go too," she whispered softly. Just then, a warm glow filled the room. Cinderella looked up in surprise to see a kind woman with a glowing wand. "Hello, Cinderella," the woman said with a warm smile. "I am your fairy godmother. And tonight, you shall go to the ball." Cinderella gasped. "Oh, fairy godmother, thank you. But I have nothing to wear, and no way to get there." "Don't worry, my dear," said the fairy godmother. She waved her wand, and suddenly, Cinderella's old dress transformed into a beautiful sparkling gown. Glass slippers appeared on her feet, shiny and new. Cinderella twirled around in her magical dress, feeling like a princess. "Now, let's get you away to the ball," said the fairy godmother. With another wave of her wand, she turned a pumpkin into a grand carriage. Then, she waved her wand again, and Gus and Jack, along with two other mice, turned into strong horses to pull the carriage. Finally, the fairy godmother changed a lizard into a coachman. Cinderella was amazed. "Oh, fairy godmother, thank you. Thank you so much." The fairy godmother smiled, but her face grew serious. "Remember, my dear, the magic will only last until midnight. You must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12. "I will, I promise," said Cinderella, climbing into the carriage. Then she waved goodbye to her fairy godmother and set off for the palace. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, everyone turned to look at her. She was so beautiful that even her own stepsisters didn't recognize her. The prince saw her and felt his heart skip a beat. He walked up to her and bowed. "May I have this dance?" he asked. Cinderella took his hand, and they danced around the ballroom. She felt so happy, as if she were in a dream. The prince and Cinderella danced and laughed all night. The hours passed quickly, and Cinderella almost forgot about the time. Suddenly, she heard the clock begin to chime. Bong! Bong! It was midnight. Cinderella gasped. "Oh no! I have to go," she said. She turned and ran, leaving the prince behind. The prince called out, "Wait! I don't even know your name." But Cinderella couldn't stop. She ran down the palace steps, losing one of her glass slippers as she hurried away. Just as she reached the carriage, the clock struck 12, and the magic faded. Her gown turned back into rags, and the carriage turned back into a pumpkin. Cinderella ran all the way home, holding the one glass slipper she still had. The next day, the prince was determined to find the girl he had danced with. He sent his royal servants to visit every house in the kingdom, carrying the glass slipper. "Whoever fits this slipper will be the prince's bride," they announced. When they arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepsisters tried the slipper first. But no matter how hard they tried, the slipper was too small. Finally, Cinderella's turn came. Her stepmother sneered, "You? Don't waste the prince's time." But the servant insisted, and Cinderella gently slid her foot into the slipper. It fit perfectly. The royal servant smiled and said, "This is the girl the prince is looking for." Cinderella was overjoyed. The prince came to meet her, and when he saw her, he knew he had found his true love. They were soon married in a beautiful ceremony, and Cinderella's dreams finally came true. She left her old life behind and lived happily ever after with the prince in the palace. And from that day on, Cinderella never had to clean or scrub or do chores ever again. She was a princess, kind and loved by all. And her fairy godmother watched over her, proud that Cinderella had stayed kind and gentle through it all.